and welcome back to the sideboard here at Star City Games St. Louis. We're here in the Legacy Open now on Sunday, and we are joined by Caleb Durward. Caleb is no stranger to the sideboard for both doing well and for having innovative decks. And you've brought another one here today. This one reminds me a little bit of another deck that you used to play that ran Tarmogoyf and Jace together. It was long time ago. I made the top 8 of one of these, and you ended up winning that tournament with like a weird zoo
Blue
list.
Zoo?
Yeah, Blue Zoo.
Right. Yeah, lightning bolts.
This one's significantly different, of course.
Sun Zenith.
But this one has sort of a different engine going in. So tell me a little bit about where this came from.
Well, I saw a Rug Tempo deck with Vexing Sphinx and Punishing Fires, and I started testing it, and the Delvers were very bad, and the Punishing Fires were very good, which inevitably led to this list, which is more of a control shell, but I still have the Stifle Wasteland package to pressure the opponent's mana base, and then eventually I grind them out with either Punishing Fires or Jace the Mind Sculptor, or even just Tarmogoyf beats. It usually doesn't matter what you kill the opponent with.
Sure.
I like Tarmogoyf because it's a wall. Like if they have a Goyf, I can play my own Goyf. So it's just the best win condition in a deck like this.
Now you mentioned Vexing Sphinx. I think that's a card that people aren't going to be too familiar with. We're probably going to have a card image for you. Vexing Sphinx was the impetus for the deck, like it got the deck going, and now you still have one copy in there.
I still do. There's a split between Vexing Sphinx and Vendilion Click on the 3-drop. Sometimes Vendilion Click, when you want to like attack their hand, is very good. But if you want to like develop your board position, Vexing Sphinx is quite good at that. Like if your opponent is pressuring you with creatures, a lot of the times it like combines with like a Tarmogoyf to make it so your opponent can't attack for a while. Meanwhile, the cumulative upkeep on it is discard a card. So you can discard the Punishing Fires, you can discard lands that you're getting back with Life from the Loam, and then when you finally cash it in, you're turning all of those extra cards. You're not really actually turning the cards in because you always get the Punishing Fires back, but you're turning that value into fresh draws off the top, into Force of Wills, into other things you need.
Right, and so it behaves a lot like Ancestral Vision, but one that can attack and block.
Right, exactly.
And 4/4 is going to be able to take down anything in combat that doesn't have a star in its power and toughness, usually.
Yeah.
So it can block Vendilion Click, it can block Delver Secrets, even a full-grown Nimble Mongoose. Is 4/4 is just bigger than. Another interesting innovation you have in this deck is the last creature that we haven't talked about yet, and I don't know how it took this long, but Augur of Bolas.
Right.
You were telling me a little bit about why Augur of Bolas is better in this deck, when on the surface it looks like this could be a Snapcaster Mage deck.
Right, it started with Snapcaster Mage, and the card was very clunky. Every time I wanted to like Snapcast back a Ponder or Snapcast back a Stifle or a Lightning Bolt, I was like, this is very awkward, because you need to set up that timing, and it's a ton of mana to invest in that, especially when you and your opponent are wastelanding each other. So the nice thing about Augur is you can play it on 2 mana, and then if you have a 3rd mana, now you're holding up Stifle or Lightning Bolt on their turn, and the Augur you can just play it basically anytime. It's much less cumbersome than the Snapcasters were. The other thing Augur does is it actually finds your combo pieces. Augur finds Punishing Fire and it finds Life from the Loam, which Snapcaster never did.
Right. And also, if you happen to have the time or the want to do this, you can brainstorm, put cards you don't want back on top, and then use Augur of Bolas to get rid of them.
Right, so it's like free scry.
Yeah, a little bit of a free scry. That you will typically mean that you miss on your Augur, or unless you put a spell back, you just put it back in your hand. A lot like shuffling back in an equipment off the Stoneforge.
You pretty much never miss, just because like that card would be in your hand anyway, so there's no reason not to put a spell back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you have a couple other interesting choices in the main deck. You have an Engineered Explosives.
Right. Engineered Explosives and Dismember are primarily to answer Tarmogoyf. They do other things randomly, but the main role is to answer a Tarmogoyf out of the opponent.
You also have
Punishing Fires kills most of things. These kill everything else.
Sure. You also have a main deck Misdirection and a main deck Negate.
Right. Misdirection is a holdover from the Tempo list. I was playing with it, and it was just very good. Even as the deck got more controlling, I still wanted that extra pitch card in there. It's been quite good in this format. Just like misdirecting a Thoughtseize when you need to protect the rest of your hand.
Right, or being able to counter an opposing Force of Will, something like that.
Right, all things like that. Negate started as a Flusterstorm. I thought it would be good with all of the combo in the room to have access to main deck Flusterstorms, and it was very bad.
Sure.
And I switched it to Negate. Negate's been pretty good.
Yeah, this can counter swords, it can counter planeswalkers, anything that you're having problems with.
Show and tells on turn infinite when you have like piles of mana.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. So Speaking of Flusterstorms, you didn't cut them entirely. You were telling me that you thought that pretty much everything was a little bit favorable or close, except for the combo matchup.
Right, combo is bad game 1. However, post board,
you have a ton post board. We have the 3 Flusterstorms, which we have sitting over here. We also have Red Elemental Blasts and Pyro Blasts, because that's pretty much standard fare for combo decks these days. But I wanted to point one out with the introduction of the Enter the Infinite Mono Blue combo deck of the Show and Tell Omniscience deck.
Right.
We wanted to have something to be able to put in off of Show and Tell. A lot of decks are trying to find things like Gilded Drake or Confusion in the Ranks is a card that I've seen out of Sideboards of Goblins decks.
Sure.
You have
Oblivion Ring.
Oblivion Ring is another great one. You have Arcane Laboratory.
Right.
Tell me about Arcane Lab.
Arcane Lab is very good. It splash hates Storm decks, which is awesome because there's lots of Storm in the room. But against the Enter the Infinite Omniscience combo deck, you put it into play, and then they can't cast the Enter the Infinite. They've already cast Show and Tell for the turn, so they can no longer play a spell. They have to pass the turn. The next turn, when they go to cast the Enter the Infinite, you can just Red Elemental Blast it, Force of Will it, whatever. They can't win the counter war because the Enter the Infinite that they're casting is their spell per turn.
Yeah.
They're basically just dead.
Sure. Yeah, they've locked themselves out of the game with your Arcane Laboratory.
Right.
That's a pretty fun trick. I like that one a lot. You have a couple of catch-all answers in here as well. Everyone's pretty used to seeing Submerge. You have another Engineered Explosives, but a couple other catch-all answers just to what are the most important things.
Right, a few more answers to Tarmogoyf. Like I said, there's a few answers to Goyf in the main deck, but having more answers post-board really shores up those matchups.
You have a Pithing Needle.
Right.
I imagine that's mostly for top.
Needle hits top, but most of the top decks are already great matchups.
Sure.
It also hits Aether Vial, which is important. Yeah.
And you
Needle just hits everything.
You also have Frozen Grip to be able to deal with Needle, and you have one Forked Bolt to be able to shore up, I imagine, things like Death and Taxes.
St. Louis has a lot of tribal decks typically, so Forked Bolt is there to
take down Goblin Lackeys and things like that.
Yeah, just
although
one more card.
We already have Augur of Bolas in our deck, so we're okay against Goblin Lackey.
That we are.
All
they
right.
can't even cycle a Gem Palm Incinerator to kill it.
Yeah.
If you go Snapcaster and try and block, they're just I'll cycle my Incinerator, put a Siege Gang into play, and then you're dead.
Sure. Well, this. Every time you come over, you have something interesting to show us, and this is certainly another one. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Caleb Durward. I'm Ruben Bressler here at Star City Games St. Louis.